live, and we are live, which is amazing, and that's good to see you drinking your gravy there. What would you?
That's my chocolate BHB.
Yes, and I'm actually trying that, so thank you for that. That's really good. So, what's the benefit of the BHB then?
All of the benefits that you would achieve from being in a ketogenic state, only enhanced. So it's nothing you can't achieve naturally from being carnivore ketogenic. But so hundreds of benefits. The reason that I'm taking this today is that I completed a duathlon today, my second duathlon. And I'm absolutely wrecked. So a couple of reasons, actually. I wanted some energy for the brain so I could concentrate because I'm absolutely exhausted. And secondly, exogenous ketones will increase EPO naturally within the body when taken after intense exercise. So those are my two, plus it combats inflammation, and the list goes on and on. But yeah, so there is a method to my madness.
That's good. We got a reel out of that, I think. That was about 60 seconds.
That's a short one for me, isn't it?
So we got Matthew in the room already, which is good, and he's saying happy Sunday, trophy yellow, smiling.
Woohoo! Happy
Does that
Sunday.
make sense to you? Yeah. Well, we've got M here. Just M. Chocolate is a good brain energizer. So that's good. The BHB and a bit of chocolate. Would that be true? Do you think?
Do you know, I'm torn when it comes to anything to do with a plant, and cocoa does come from a plant. Now that said, I do flavor my chocolate BHB with cocoa.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to. I always think that anything from a plant consumed in excess is going to relate to a negative benefit. But so I guess it depends on how much chocolate one was eating. The benefits from these things, I think, compare to what? So it's a case of if you are eating a poor lifestyle and you start to eat vegetables, you're going to see a benefit. If you're eating a poor lifestyle and you revert to dark chocolate, you're going to see a benefit. All of these so-called antioxidant benefits from plants are not antioxidants. They are, in fact, a pro-oxidant effect. So I think that, the poisons in the dose, you can get away with consuming X amount for the reason that I don't drink too much coffee. I still drink coffee. I love drinking coffee. One, because I think it's a drug. There we are. And I'm addicted to coffee. But two, I only see the upside when I drink coffee. So the likes of Anthony Chaffee, when he consumes coffee, becomes inflamed and he notices almost immediately. So any benefit to him consuming coffee is negated by the negative effect. But for me, I don't feel that it inflames my body. I train intensely. So you would expect that I'm highly attuned to my body in regards to inflammation, aches and pains. When I take it out, I'm aching just as much as I do, when I keep it in. But I do notice a benefit when it comes to training because caffeine is a known ergogenic aid. So I use these things to confer a benefit depending on what that benefit could be and the timing of taking that. So I wouldn't drink coffee before bed because it keeps me awake. So as the stimulant effect would be negative in that respect. Too much coffee is high in acrylamide, which is a known carcinogen. So, I wouldn't consume it in excess. And again, it alters the glutamate to GABA ratio, which can lead to anxiety and depression. So people who drink, silly amounts of coffee, it can lead to feeling, negative thoughts, self-doubt and this sort of thing. Not to mention insomnia and lots of other sort of downstream deleterious effects of overconsumption. Yeah. But then a little bit can confer a benefit. So, chocolate, quite possibly. I mean, but when it comes to the benefits from plants in general, I think it compares to if you were living a carnivore lifestyle, strict, you were going to be you're going to benefit more without putting it in. But that said, if you are that strict, put in a few pieces in now and again isn't going to cause any harm anyway. So I think your context is incredibly important, isn't it? The difference is we have healed our gut. Our guts are healed. We no longer suffer with this intestinal permeability. If we were to go back eating these foods day after day, then, potentially, but I think if we compare it to a standard lifestyle, then it's all about context. It's all about context. And I'm rabbiting on again now, but,
I was trying to get a word in, to be honest, because when you said about caffeine, when I did my advanced personal training certificate many years ago, interesting to see caffeine is a banned substance in so many sports. And when I got involved with the javelin throw, the Olympic javelin throw, you've just got to avoid caffeine. So why am I saying that? Well, it proves it's a stimulant. It proves it gives you an edge because it's banned.
I think, wasn't it recently? Wasn't it sort of over the last few years deemed not to, have an impact on athletic performance? I don't know. I might be getting my wires crossed, but you could argue the food would improve performance. Because if you had the correct nutrients, you're going to perform better. And that doesn't mean that you can't perform without fasting. I'm on a daily basis, but on a level playing field. But it's, if one was to go 30 days.
I was going to say the Manchester City striker, Eric Haaland, who's a Haaland, however you want to pronounce it. He's bucking the trend and having liver and protein and mouth taping and wearing blue blockers and doing all these sort of things. And he's, basically the top scorer in striker last year in the Premier League, beyond belief performance. So we are seeing that in the mainstream. Sorry to interrupt you, Rich, but that is being talked about. Sadly, even today, it's still reported in a derogatory fashion, as in it's weird, it's strange. He eats liver and meat, and that's pretty much all he eats. He's 23 and he's still growing. Is it this weird diet? And I'm thinking, well, he's at the peak of his performance and looking amazing and growing. So it's out there. It is out there. And I think you're right about the coffee. The problem with the studies is is it funded by the coffee growers who want you to believe that it should be back and used appropriately? Sash mode, by the way. Hiya, guys. Good to see you. Happy bonfire night. And I wanted to say that. Remember the 12th of November, because next Sunday we've got Sally K Norton. So the fireworks tonight, and look at the background. I've tried to make it sort of bonfire night background. But next week, surely the fireworks will really go when we got Sally K Norton. And do they have bonfire night? I don't think they do in America, because it's about our parliament being blown up, isn't it? So Cat Diamond there. Hello from California. Hello. Cat. And we've got a question now, Rich. Matthew, would having a healthy fat with beef protein isolate powder change the absorption rate of 10 grams an hour? Sorry, I'm going to read it again, but this is in the context of something you said last week. So take two. Matthew's got this question in the context of something you said last week, and he's making a sort of an add to it. Would having a healthy fat with beef protein isolate powder change the absorption rate of 10g an hour and 15g in 90 minutes?
You should imagine so. Yeah. I try to eat protein with fat always. Now, I do produce a whey type protein, which I believe to be, as clean as it can be. Now, that said, I believe that a beef isolate is cleaner, although it comes back to the absorption rate. So, two conflicting things, and it depends on what your goals are. But even with the protein that I make, if I do use it, or when I do use it, I will add a fat to that. The reason I don't put the fat in is that some people who are looking to increase protein are not always looking to increase fat. And the bioavailability is a lot higher from a casein protein, a whey-based casein, than it is from a beef isolate, for example. So yeah, add the fat. That's a fantastic workaround if you're not tied to tracking macros and you're not looking to restrict fat. One of the benefits to add in the protein for me is cutting for a competition, for example. So, you can eat the lean protein. You can get the tuna, the bass fish, the chicken. And this will stimulate the body to upregulate its own fat burning process. And that will allow you to lose weight. So if you're looking to drop a few pounds incredibly quickly, eating those lean cuts are a fantastic way. No pun intended, but another great option is adding in a protein supplement, especially if you're on the go. It's always handy to take with you. So if you are doing that and you're not tied to fat macros, by all means, put some fat in.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, and Matthew, thank you for joining the Fat Club and attending our live. If you're interested in more of these live streams, we do one tomorrow at 5 p.m, but it's only in Mighty Networks. But there we go. Right, we have another question, actually. Pamela Gordon. Hello, Pamela. I am carnivore. I have been getting really sleepy after eating 2 to 3 hours. Right. I'm not doing very well with reading. I'm going to do it again. Okay, take 2. Pamela Gordon, I am carnivore. I have been getting really sleepy after eating 2 or 3 hour naps and really cold, shivery cold. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I had this recently with a client. It could be a number of reasons. They could be new to carnivore, so they're still suffering with hypoglycemia after eating food and not assimilating the proteins and fats effectively. But what I found with the client that I was working with, this is somebody who has been carnivore for a long time. They were adding in fats that they were getting from the supermarket, and they were processed meats, which were higher in linoleic acid. So I put it down to this. I put it down to the increase in insulin resistance, and when insulin increases, it can lead to all sorts of downstream, effects. This is why if we eat carbohydrate, we'll have insulin release and then a blood glucose crash. So it could be related to that. It could be not eating enough. It could be eating too much. So, I mean, there's lots of other sort of contributing factors there. Definitely the source of the meat for certain could be a big impact. Are you only eating lean cuts? Are you eating predominantly beef, or is it eggs? Are you maybe having a reaction to the eggs? A lot of people have reactions to eggs and fish and cheese, other dairy products. Lots of things. But what I would suggest to do is an elimination protocol, removing everything, not one thing at a time, taking everything out, seeing if that improves, coming back to maybe eating just beef or lamb, and then reintroducing certain things and seeing what impact it has. But grass-fed from your local butcher is always going to be better. I'm not a big fan of supermarket bought meats, but I do understand that there's a purpose to it. But if cash is an issue when it comes to buying protein, beef mince is incredibly cheap, and your local butcher will probably add the offcuts of the offal to the mince, so you get all the benefits of the liver, heart, and kidney without even paying for it, essentially. So that's what I tend to do. I eat a lot of mince, and I'm going to be putting in a lot more lamb as well. So lamb, I think, is another well underrated source of protein and fat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say Pamela, we probably need to know how long you've been carnivore, and is this something that's developed? Let's say you've been carnivore 2 years as it suddenly started. And Rich is right. What are you eating? Are you eating ribeyes? Are you eating eggs? Are you eating ground beef? Are you eating fish? So what sort of carnivore are you? So this is just not being critical of you. It's just to be helpful. The more information you can give, but very just in notation. I am carnivore 2 years. I get sleepy after eating, mainly after ribeyes. So because getting sleepy after eating is definitely, when you're new to carnivore, something that you experience ever such a lot, because it takes a lot more energy to digest. That can also explain the coldness sometimes, because your thyroid is trying to regulate your temperature, whereas your digestive system is trying to digest stuff. So you might find, although there is a thermic effect of food, that the digestion is taking some of the energy away from your thyroid to produce the right temperature. Shivery cold. So yeah, and if this is a new thing, maybe you've got an infection, maybe it's nothing to do with food at all. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. We have a nice, I like this, once a week man. For those people on the audio podcast, the week is WEAK. But I do know there's a joke about a once a week man, which is so has a naughty connotation. So anyway, I like the name, and he's just saying, remember the sizzle at 7. But yeah, it doesn't really pan properly, does it? Cammy, hey. Chocolate is very high in oxalates. The darker, the worse. Yeah, and this is the thing, because dark chocolate people like, because it's not got milk in it and it's not got, lots of sugar. But when you have the darker chocolate, you do have higher oxalates. And then you get into the subject of stearic acid. But I think we'll move on from chocolate. Don't want to talk about that too much unless it keeps coming up, and then we'll go back to it. Tom J, good evening. I think that's one of your followers, isn't it, Rich? Tom J.
Yeah, Tom. Yeah, I believe so. Tom's been with us for a little while now, hasn't he? The last couple of weeks or so.
Yeah. I'm not going to do my Tom Jones joke, because it would be unusual if I did. Right. Carnivore muscle. That's Jonathan. Yes. He's talking about the absorption here. Absorption is the same. Assimilation is no different, accompanying protein with fat. And Richard says, I recommend my friend Richard's keto product, top shelf stuff. That's good. But that is true, though, isn't it, Rich? Because absorption and utilization are two different things, and the rate you absorb it is important, and when you absorb it, so much. So just yes, Cami, I'm aware of that. It's not a regular part of my diet, but like Rich with his coffee, I've experienced only benefits when I have the occasional cup of hot raw cocoa. So yeah, this is it. I think it's all about having informed decisions when you ingest anything. Now, Andrea, and I'm not going to produce any laughs by trying to do that surname, I had a lactate threshold test done, and the result was I have strong degree of lactate tolerance. Does low carb lifestyle affect this? I can't find any studies on this. I am a PHCI coach. Thank you. Because obviously that's OBLA, isn't it? The onset of blimey, this is going back to my training. You look at that when you're training people, the onset of lactate. I can't remember the mnemonic. The mnemonic is supposed to help you, but I can't remember the mnemonic. But anyway, yeah, what do you reckon on that?
Yeah, unsure. That's one to look into, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that the low carb lifestyle would actually improve.
Well, if we're talking about muscle lactate, we know is shuttled to the liver much more efficiently when we are low carb ketogenic adapted. So it leads to us not suffering with these DOMS, the daily the delayed onset muscle soreness. And what I noticed when I was bodybuilding is that I would never reach that sort of that vein popping pump that I would on carbohydrate. But that vein popping pump is lactate buildup, and it's the body's inefficiency to buffer the hydrogen ions and lead to lactate buildup. So I guess, it makes it more efficient in that respect. So in regards to blood testing, I'm unsure outside of the realms of training, but it makes sense if it does that. It certainly upregulates that system, the lactic acid system, and allows us to buffer and perform at a much higher intensity for a lot longer. So I guess it does make sense.
Yeah, I was just trying to look up in my notes, but anyway. I can't find it, so it's boring me typing. Right, let's move on. So Jonathan says, Carnivore Muscle says, all cocoa products give him a headache or make him feel unwell, headaches, etc. Right, Yuri, hi, can I ask questions here? Well, yes, you've just done that. So that's it. That's your one used up. Not really. Of course, you can ask questions here. It's free for all. And if you want to get it promptly done, then you can do, a super chat, make a donation, which is very handy. Cami, yes, it can be used as a hit of oxalates if you need to starve off dumping episodes. So what I'm going to do from now, just to keep us flowing, is try not to do too much of the to and fro in the chat, but just try and get to some of the questions. But for now, we'll carry on. Carnivore Muscle, this is a great place to ask questions. I would rate it top 4 of all carnivore Q&As. Right. Well, let's throw the gauntlet down. Top 4 would imply we're 4th, because if we were a 3rd, he would say top 3. So I'd like to know the other 3. And we're quite happy to talk about other people, aren't we? So what about this one? This is good. Cat Diamond. Pamela, are you taking iodine? That should help with body temperature. And I think that's because it's supporting thyroid function or production of thyroid hormone, actually. So your collagen powder, does that have selenium in it, Rich?
The electrolytes too.
It does, yeah?
The electrolytes, yeah, not the collagen. The electrolytes. Right. I do collagen as well, but it's the electrolytes, yeah, contain selenium, molybdenum, and astaxanthin. So some homework.
Go and tell us about that.
The astaxanthin is a compound that is found naturally in things like salmon. It's what gives salmon the pink color. It is the only true antioxidant on the planet. And by that, I mean these other things from plants that we are told are antioxidants are in fact pro-oxidants. They begin their journey as pro-oxidants. And the theory is that this hormetic effect, so we'll benefit from the effect of hormesis, where we put a little bit of bad in, the body will increase glutathione, the body's master antioxidant, and we will confer a benefit from taking that toxin from a plant. Except that isn't true, because these plants or so-called antioxidants activate something called the NRF2 pathway, which is an oxidative stress pathway. The body sees this as a pro-oxidant, increases glutathione to conjugate to this toxin to excrete it from the body. And we would elicit the same response from ingesting things like mercury, lead, arsenic, tobacco smoke, exhaust fumes. So if we are to believe that these plants have an antioxidant effect, then we also must believe that lead and arsenic and mercury are also good for us, because they elicit the same response. But this astaxanthin is the only compound that I know of on the planet that will elicit a true antioxidant effect without becoming a pro-oxidant first. And it's, as an antioxidant, is 550 times more potent than vitamin E. It's 60 to 80 times stronger. And some studies have gone up to 200 times stronger than vitamin C, 800 times stronger than coenzyme Q10. And the list goes on and on and on. I've probably got 20 to 30 studies, clinical trials, research papers, conferring benefits, huge benefits to astaxanthin. And it comes from things like salmon. There are other animals that contain this compound as well. But astaxanthin comes in 2 different forms. So we have a natural version and a synthetic version. So many supplements on the market will claim to have this astaxanthin, but in most cases it's a synthetic version, especially if it's in the UK, because as far as I'm aware, I'm the only company in the UK that has the rights to use this particular type of astaxanthin, which is 21 times more potent than the synthetic version. So don't always believe what you read on a label. But astaxanthin, again, comes from animal proteins. So, which brings us back to carnivore.
Yeah, absolutely. And OBLA was what I was trying to think of. Onset of blood lactate accumulation, also known as lactate threshold, refers to exercise intensity at which lactate levels in the blood begin to accumulate more rapidly. And that's when your performance starts to drop off. That's brilliant, Rich. That's really good. So let's get back to the questions. So I've lost myself now. So yeah, could you speak about This is against Once a Week Man. Was that the person that asked if we can ask a question? Anyway, no, it wasn't. Could you speak a little bit about what to use to brush your teeth? I heard Richard says he uses MCT oil. Is that true?
Yeah, I use MCT oil for everything. Yeah.
Do you do oil pulling?
Sorry?
Do you do oil pulling as well?
Oil
of your teeth?
pulling.
Pulling. Pulling.
Oil
No,
pulling.
right.
No.
Well, that's where you put an oil in your mouth and then you sort of suck it and swirl it around and suck it, and it sort of gets in between the gaps, and you do it for 2 or 3 minutes, and some people swear by it and think it's fantastic.
So as you would with a mouthwash, in effect.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So I'll give it a swirl. I tend to drink it, mind, instead of spitting it out. But I certainly don't swill it for 2 or 3 minutes. You know, it's a quick swoosh. And I have been known to wash my hair as well with MCT. But it can be quite expensive. But having said that, you don't need an awful lot. So you could use an avocado oil or something instead. Although avocado oil is probably just as expensive, actually, especially for the volume that you would use. But a tallow I use for skincare. So I use a tallow cream for I used to suffer with dry hands when I was younger. In fact, all my life I've suffered with this condition where my hands would go dry to the point where if I clenched my fist, it would crack and bleed. And I was on all of these hand creams for years and years and years from the supermarkets. I had hand creams on, prescription from the doctor, medicated creams. I used to have creams or this little spot thing as well for the acne that I used to suffer with as an adult. So I used to have prescription. I can't remember what it was, but it's in this little, it's in this little little tube. And when you get a spot or acne, you dab it on, and it's meant to sort of sterilize and kill the spot. And I used to use that for years and years and years, all of which have completely gone away since I've become keto and more so carnivore. So something else to add to the list of benefits that we don't quite often speak about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I use tallow in the shower. We have a water softener, so salt is added to the water. That's the first thing. So when you look at the glass on the shower, if it's got that sort of misty mugginess that you have to clean off, we don't get that at all, because the water softener means that there is no staining on any of the shower panels. So yeah, I just use tallow for that, and tallow to washing. That's all I do. I don't use any other sort of things like moisturizers and stuff. Looking at my face in HD, maybe I should. Not doing too bad for 59. And I clean my teeth with a salt solution, and my hair gel is water and salt. Simple as that. It's a little spray bottle with some salt in, and I couldn't believe the difference, because I used to get very sweaty when I was training and working out, and the gel would get in here and it would be awful. But anyway, since I've been doing that, it's been much better. So yeah, you can do all this fantastically. So thank you, Jonathan, for becoming a member. That's really nice. I appreciate that. And strangely enough, going back to your top four, you've actually written who you think is in your top four. So yes. So Harry Sopanos. Yes, I understand that totally and utterly. And if that's someone new to you, Rich, he would beat you hands down in long answers. He would do. He used to do weekly live streams that would be 5 hours, quite easily. Yeah, just on his own. And he is an absolute font of knowledge. And I've interviewed him a couple of times, and he's a top bloke. So I'm not going to assume in order that he's number one, but the top 3 or 4. So you've got Harry Sopanos, then you've got Bart K. Yeah, Bart, I'm not sure he does live Q&As as much as he used to. And I'm a guest on his show tomorrow. So that's quite weird. Timing, that's good. Dr. Chafee, yeah, he's all right, isn't he, Rich? He's okay. And what is CMR? What is CMR? Do you know who that is? Would that be Carnivore Muscle Revolution or something? Is that you yourself, Jonathan? I don't know. But anyway, by the way, Jonathan is a carnivore in the UK, so we've got a little bit of news here. Myself and Rich and Jonathan and Phil Escott and Ben Hunt, who's a bit too shy at the moment, we were talking about the fact we need a little group of carnivores in the UK to do a sort of weekly thing about just carnivores in the UK. So we're doing that, and I think we're doing that Tuesday night at 7:00. I don't know if Rich is able to make it because he wasn't able to make the first meeting because I think he was out with your daughter, and that's fair enough too. So it's going to be one, two, three, four, five of us. And also I'm going to put a call out there. If you know any carnivore UK carnivores, influencers that you think would be very good to get on to that show, then please suggest it either, by emailing me or Jonathan or Rich. And because we just want a map with lots and lots of dots everywhere of all these different people that, are carnivores in the UK. Do you think you'll be doing it, Rich, this Tuesday?
Quite possibly. A few things to add to that. So I've, the carnivore consultant, Jonathan, and myself recorded a podcast months and months and months ago. And it's an incredible podcast that I still haven't got round to releasing yet. I've got a massive backlog, so that's my next one to release, and I'm well behind on releasing. So stay tuned for that one. I was away on. So I left Friday to travel to Devon. So the reason for that is I was competing today in a duathlon. It was a GB qualifying duathlon. And there was around 400 of the best athletes in the UK competing. So I was well out of my league. But that happened today. But what I wanted to do, the idea was to travel up early and on the Friday, and I wanted to spend the day up there with my little girl, going to a few sort of amusement parks and various things. But the amusement park was closed due to the weather, so we were going to go to I can't remember what it's called. There's a little miniature village where things are sort of model village. What's it called? I want to say Babadook, but it's not, because that's a horror film. But it rhymes with that. There's something Baba in there. Babacool maybe. So we headed off to that on Friday, so I could spend some time with my little girl and the missus before sort of competing and doing my thing on the Sunday. Except I woke up, I had a screw in my tire on Friday morning, so I had to wait till the garage opened. I took it to the garage. They didn't have my tire in stock. I was incredibly late leaving, so we didn't leave until gone 11. And then 20 minutes into the journey, I had another flat tire on the other side, to which I had to pull over and inspect the wheel and pump it up. And anyway, long and short of it is, we didn't get to do anything on Friday because we didn't get up there till too late, until this attraction was closed. So I made up for that on Saturday. But that's what I was on Friday, and I competed in that duathlon today, which is the reason that I'm half soaked, I think, and a little bit exhausted. Basically fighting for my life for a couple of hours against some of the best athletes in the UK, having only recently began running and cycling. So it was an eye opener.
Brilliant. So just for people that are wondering where we are in the comments, so we're 15 minutes behind at the moment because Matthew's comment there, it was posted at 7:15. We will try to get to every comment and question. Matthew's just got a comment, really. A few years ago, I had a bodybuilder work colleague who only ate white fish such as cod for 7 days straight for rapid weight loss. He looked great, but was very tired. And you probably
you need the fat. So there's an incredible way to strip, but you do need to put those fat refeeds in. So if it's for a specific purpose, doing that in the short term is an ideal way to strip the fat. But I noticed when I was doing consultations at public speaking events, when I used to compete and I'd strip and go a long time without fat, that I was unable to form words. I was giving presentations, forgetting why I was there. So fat is incredibly important. So if you are doing that, do it sensibly. and do your fat refeeds to overcompensate for lack of energy. Plus, this person is obviously coming from a carb background as well, so there's that whole adaptation period and lack of sodium and drop in insulin and everything else that we've spoken about previously.
Great stuff. Could you zoom in on your camera a little bit, or is that not possible, by the way?
On mine, yeah.
Because I like to see this brilliant remote control working. And we can get you look, because you look so small compared to me. That's good. And it'll look better on a reel. Right, here we go. So yeah, Guam 83, GWAM 83. Here's the question. I've tried Carnivore twice, failed day 9 and then day 16. I always lose 15 to 20% strength in the gym. And as the days progress, I feel worse and worse. Is this just not for me?
No, everybody feels the same way. You're coming from a lifetime of being fueled by glucose. Your whole gut microbiome is geared up to processing specific things for nutrients. And now you're taking that energy away. You're taking that, you're changing your whole gut microbiome. So you're altering the firmicutes and Bacteroidetes. And it takes time to upregulate. And you need to be able to assimilate those fats and proteins effectively. And it's a transition period. So initially you have that drop in insulin, which is signaling the kidneys to release sodium from 4 points in the nephrons in the kidneys. And with that fluid loss and that sodium loss, this leads to what's known as keto flu, or was once known as the Atkins flu. So sodium is incredibly important. Lots of sodium can compensate for much of the loss, because it's not, you're not losing muscle, it's volume in the muscle. So maybe supplement with creatine as well. But there is an adaptation period, and it can take, Stephen and I have spoken to various listeners and personal experiences. It took me nearly 12 months to fully adapt, but the general consensus is 3 to 6 months to fully adapt. Strength, everything will drop off a cliff initially, but you need to make sure that you persevere, keep the protein in, keep the fat in, get plenty of electrolytes, make sure the potassium and sodium ratio is accurate. Don't fear the fat, because now you need to signal the body to transition into burning fats. You can do this through, potentially supplementing with an MCT powder or exogenous ketones also, but salts are super important. So you can use electrolytes or salt your meals with like a pink Himalayan or a Celtic sea salt. But it is very common. I think almost everybody who's transitioned into this lifestyle has experienced that. And it took me maybe 2 or 3 weeks until I started to feel any sort of benefit at all, or even any resemblance of my previous self, because I've explained before that I genuinely thought that I was going to die. But I was so unhappy with the way that I looked and various other factors in my life that I persevered. And one day I woke up and I felt the best that I had ever felt. So how you go about this is incredibly important. But salt, protein, and fat are 3 of my main pillars that I would strongly recommend. Consistency is key.
Yeah, and I think you've got to look at it. I just take a bit of a broader approach. Your body, all the mechanisms in your body have got to change. Everything's got to change. You've got to adapt. And I often talk about the fact that I'm pretty good at tennis. All right. Now, this might sound a bit out there, and I've won a singles title. Now, if you've never played tennis before and you gave me a game, you possibly would want to give up, because you've never played tennis before. You don't know how it works. You don't know how to serve. You don't know how to hit the ball and all this sort of stuff. And maybe after day 9, you'd want to give up, because maybe you wouldn't be making the progress. But if you had a good coach and someone saying to you, well, stick with it. This is what everybody, like Rich just said, this is what everybody goes through. Don't worry. I was a learner once. Just stick with it. And then you get to day 16 and another day when you think you're going to give up, and say, look, you are getting better. There are these little changes you're maybe not aware. You've just got to stick with it. And that's what your body's doing. It's just adapting. And sometimes you have to take 2 steps back to make 1 step forward. But eventually, as you become less and less dependent on carbs, what happens is there is a flip in this. And you might go back to carbohydrates after, let's say, doing it for 3-4 months, and you find that the carbohydrates that made you feel fantastic, or you thought made you feel fantastic, the effect it would have would be awful. And then going back to a high carbohydrate diet would be difficult. And after day 9, you think, oh, I can't do this any longer. I want to go back to feeling really good like I did on Carnivore. So there is many ways to look at this, but I think listening to the right people and getting the right electrolytes is key. And I hope that's a good answer for you. We got Rob Roy now. Good evening, gents from South Africa. I'm a 5,000 meter athlete and new to Carnivore. Would Richard mind giving me a rough idea of what he would prioritize to try and achieve optimal performance? So I think we've just had a little bit in that last question. Is there anything you want to add, because we're talking about this particular athletic?
Look, I think this is a brilliant segue from the last comment. There's specific enzymes and pathways in the body that we need to upregulate, particularly the monocarboxylate transporters, the MCTs, not to be confused with medium chain triglycerides. It takes time to adapt, so consistency is key. Keep doing what you're doing. Salt is super important. So everything that we've just mentioned. But if there's one thing that I tell people that is incredibly important, and it's protein. It's always the protein, because every cell in your body is made of protein. Every cell is made of fat. Every protein source in nature comes with fat. An egg is roughly equal amounts of protein to fat. Steak, salmon, all of these things, chicken breast with the skin on, all of these animal proteins come coupled with fat. So eat as nature intended. And what you will find is when you remove the foods that contain the lectins and phytic acid, so the breads, the pastas, the rice, and all the typical things, the oats that athletes would tend to use, suddenly your body's going to absorb these, more of these nutrients. Phytic acid and lectins can block the absorption of things like zinc, iron, and magnesium by as much as 100%. And zinc is essential for the production of testosterone, and testosterone we need to heal, repair, and grow muscle. So it is counterintuitive to live a standard lifestyle with pasta and rice and all of these other things. So when you go to consuming the proteins and the fats and you remove all of these other things, and if you are going carnivore particularly, then that's even better, because now we're removing all of the other phytoalexins, plant toxins, anti-nutrients, because that's what fiber is. Fiber is an anti-nutrient. You begin to, again, absorb more of these nutrients, and we can assimilate them and process them, and we become healthier and fitter and stronger. A few things there. I mean, we could go to town. I think there's a whole sort of 2 hours that we could probably do on athletic performance. And again, Jonathan and I go into this in the podcast that I'm releasing soon. We touch base on athletic performance amongst loads of other things. So stay tuned for that. And there's plenty more available on all of our channels. Stephen's, my YouTube channel, and Jonathan's YouTube channel as well. Lots of things to do with athletic performance. So feel free to check those out.
Yeah, great. Hope that was helpful. Here we go. We got Landers here. Good evening, Richard and Stephen. I have an enlarged prostate gland, weak urinary flow. Would a carnivore diet be contraindicated with this condition? I can't find any info on it. Right. Well, the first thing I would say is if you go on Google, and sadly, if you go on to YouTube and you do some searches, you're not going to get good information about carnivore, low carb, or ketogenic diets, because a lot of what we talk about, the WHO, which is a business, it's not an independent health organization, they do get funding, will hide the information from you. And as I said last week, if I was looking to improve my health 10 years ago, I would have done a Google search, I would have done a YouTube search, and I would have found keto, I would have found Ken Berry, Eric Berg, all those sort of people. Now, I wouldn't find it. I genuinely wouldn't find it. So here we go. So, yes. So I would firstly say it's very doubtful the carnivore diet would be contraindicated. Rather, because it's an anti-inflammatory diet, it's definitely anti-inflammatory. Too many people have said this, they've experienced it. It would improve your situation. You see, what happens, the bladder obviously fills with a certain amount of urine, and then as it stretches, it pushes and it gives you the desire to urinate. If your prostate enlarges, it pushes up into this area, and it makes the internal size of the bladder smaller. But because the prostate is pushing up against the bladder misreads it as a full bladder waiting for you to urinate, because the prostate is pushing up. So therefore, when you then urinate, what happens is you get a weak flow. And much like the old-fashioned systems for toilets in the UK, where you'd have a big chamber full of water and you'd have a chain which you would pull, and gravity would make that flush go. If you put bricks into the cistern, which is what people used to do to save water, so your flush didn't have so much water in there, you would get a weaker flush. And that's exactly what's happening with you. Your prostate is pushing it. Well, this isn't medical advice. This is talking generally, actually, about this condition. Can't give you one-to-one advice, Landers, I'm afraid. But anyway, that's what happens. So I hope that makes sense. The prostate gland inflames, gets large, whatever is caused that. We don't really know, but that's what's making the weak urinary flow. That, and the fact that the urethra is going to be inflamed. So the internals of that, so like a hose pipe, if it's inflamed, what happens is the interior, the space in the side is smaller. So you're going to get a flow that's going to be a little bit weaker. So yeah, it should put the pressure up, but because you've got the volume, less water there, it just makes that situation. So did you want to add anything to that, Rich?
No, other than the fact that when we become carnivore or ketogenic, ketones block NLRP3 inflammasome, so they block inflammatory markers, which is why many of us experience much less inflammation. So it makes sense. It all comes together, doesn't it? So live a clean and healthy lifestyle and block inflammation, and all of these issues tend to go away when you speak to the masses. And I hate that that comment that we have to use all the time. We can't give this individual health advice and all this sort of stuff. And I don't understand why we shouldn't be able to just give advice. If it's our opinion. But yeah,
it's not designed for people like us that are sensible or have honors degrees in physiology and health. It's to stop other people and I have heard people being given really bad advice. I think that's a thing.
Yeah, maybe one we could go into more detail on the other platform, but yeah,
we're going to go on to Rumble. Yes, 8 o'clock. See, I said it out loud. We're top 4 because I can never usually get on it on Sunday night. Information is top 2, right? So we're second, right? That's very nice. That's very good. But who's number 1? Anyway, right, Matthew, again, is rooibos tea the healthiest tea? I bought some and the packaging claims it's low in tannins.
So again, are you going to... Right, let's break it down. In a simple way as I possibly can. Plants can be used for medication. Medication's useful when you're sick. So if you are unwell and there is a plant compound that can help alleviate a specific issue, then you can use that plant to do so. But what we shouldn't do is consume that product or that medication daily. So the food that I always come back to with this is one that would shock many, is broccoli. Up until a few years ago, I believed that broccoli was incredibly good for me. And we're told that it's incredibly good for us because it's high in a compound called sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is touted as a chemical to help fight cancer, which is fantastic if you have cancer. So sulforaphane is a compound used in chemotherapy, but you wouldn't take a chemotherapy pill unless you had cancer, because chemotherapy kills every cell within the body. So why would you take a chemotherapy pill if you didn't have cancer? So if you are unwell, and any of the so-called proposed benefits to drinking, any tea or any other compound for that matter, if you have researched it and you have found that it does confer a benefit to something that you were suffering with, then by all means use it. But it's quite often the case that when you remove everything else, all of these other things go away. Your immune system improves. You don't become sick as often. So you don't need to take in, these compounds. And in the case of broccoli, sulforaphane is so toxic that it doesn't exist in a healthy plant. It's created during the chewing process where myrosinase binds to glucoraphanin and it creates that isothiocyanate sulforaphane. So it's so toxic it can't exist in a healthy plant. It's created as we chew on it, as the plant becomes under attack. So it's a defense chemical. So why would we be taking defense chemicals if we are not unwell? So if you are unwell and you believe that tea is going to confer a benefit through research that you have done independently, I don't believe what it says on the packet. Look at it yourself. Look through research, on the BMJ, for example, and come to your own conclusions. So plants are fantastic for medications. If you're sick, brilliant. If you're not, then you do not need them, in my opinion, which again is not medical advice.
You're going to have to tell me later why I rubbed you up the wrong way when I said that. So, sash mode.
You didn't. It's just the whole thing. We're not allowed to give advice. And yet, the reality is this is why we're here, isn't it? But it's education, isn't it? All we are doing is providing education based on research that you and I have carried out and
real experience.
Real experience with ourselves, clients, customers, etc., and the whole network that we move and work with.
Yeah.
But
Sash mode, I think, might have missed. So this was posted at 7:23, and it's now 7:51. So we're trying to keep up. I promise you. Sash mode. Just wondering what products do you both use to wash your face, shower with, use a deodorant, etc. So most of that has been answered earlier on, so you'd have to watch the replay. But I didn't mention deodorant, but I want to very quickly say one of the things I'm gobsmacked about is I don't need deodorant. And everyone who's not carnivore might cringe at this, but things like my socks and t-shirts and stuff like that, I don't have to wash every time I wear them. Even socks that I use when I play football. So I've got a pair of socks which I've used for the last 5 weeks in my five-a-side football, which I've got back into after 10 years away from it, and they don't smell. They don't smell. I don't need deodorant, and I think when you're reasonably strict carnivore, you don't smell. And I was thinking about this from the old histories when you see sort of costume dramas and stuff like that. I used to think, wow, they must have really stunk. But I don't think they did. Not really, because if you're eating a decent diet, you don't smell, actually. And I think there's also, a lot of the old films when they went back in, they had medieval serving wenches and all this sort of stuff. They'd always make their teeth really black, but actually it's only since we've had lots of sugar that the teeth are really bad. And you've only got to look at African nations, to look at their teeth. And they're fantastic, aren't they? So let's go to, I think this is another question. By the way, guys, I have put a link in the chat for the next hour at 8 o'clock on Rumble. So Tom J said, comments on protein kinase. An influencer I follow claims that if you overeat on a meal, you stimulate it and it triggers inflammation, therefore going against OMAD. Not convinced, to be honest.
No, well, AMPK is the opposite to mTOR. So the body needs stages of growth. So mTOR and AMPK work in a seesaw effect, almost against each other. We need periods of growth, healing, and repairing, but we can't elicit a constant activation of mTOR because that will lead to all sorts of other things like oxidative damage and stress and all these other issues. Lots of groups of people amongst the world have shown lower lifespans with increased mTOR, particularly bodybuilders who consume lots of carbohydrates. So we need the balance. I'm a big fan of eating one meal a day. But what I would say is that you don't have to live that way if you don't want to. A lot of the benefits to being ketogenic, the brown fat activation, even autophagy and mitophagy, lipolysis, are all activated through just being ketogenic. Even if you were to eat all the way through the day. So you don't have to fast. It's just that state of autophagy is increased when fasting. But I would say that eat as you feel. So if you feel hungry, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and then, eat again when you're hungry again. So if eating 1 meal a day suits you, fantastic. Unless you were suffering with other issues like loss of hair, fatigue and all these sorts of, there's lots of other confounding factors, but AMPK is essential. It's essential for the homeostasis of the human body. So it's a load of rubbish. All you need to do is Google autophagy, and you will see all of the benefits of cellular repair and regeneration. The body will clean all the old, sick and dying cells and create new, younger, stronger, fitter, faster ones. And it's been shown to improve lifespan and longevity. So why would that ever be a negative thing? But again, we wouldn't go 30 days without eating unless we had to. Doesn't mean that we can't, but there are cases in which you would do so. Maybe if you suffered with cancer or something. That gentleman from Scotland who went 372 days, I believe, Steve, fasted, 382. So there are circumstances where you can do extended fasts, but eat when you're hungry, listen to your body.
Yeah, it's cool. So do you know this person that's put the comment up?
I do. No, yeah.
How do you pronounce her name?
I believe it's No. I may be wrong, but that's how I pronounce it. Yeah, in my Welsh.
Well, I'm going to read this because it sounds a bit crass coming from you, Rich. So here we go. And this is what's been posted. Highly recommend Keto Pro products. I'm in every week stocking up on electrolytes, MCT, collagen, and raspberry bomb. Yum. Going to have a t-shirt made, fueled by Keto Pro. Def helped with 5.5 stone loss. So that's good. So firstly, I want to say, the website is theketopro.com, and you can get 10% off your first order if you're interested. By the way, this live question and answer thing isn't to sell products, but if someone's going to tell you how good it is, we might as well do that because everyone else does it. And I saw your eyes light up when she talked about the t-shirt, Rich.
Yes.
Are you thinking of doing some merchandise then?
Yeah, so I do have some. It's just not available on the website, which I will sort you out with. So drop me a message and we will get something printed. I wouldn't have you pay in to put that on, so we'll get you Keto Pro'd up. But that's what I always wear. So Keto Pro, fueled by fat. I don't know if you can see it, which way we go in. Yeah. So that's what's on there. And
you need it like the size. I've got this online coach thing. You need it and then wear it. And then people. Oh, you got it on the back. That's all right.
Keto Pro everywhere I go. So, and when I eat out, I feel like I'm making a statement. So people sometimes feel uncomfortable, or, what if I'm with family and, well, I go branded Keto Pro, so I can't even put those things in if I wanted to, but I like to make a statement when I'm out for food. But yeah.
That's great.
Sing it loud and proud.
So that's the first hour done. And I do apologize to everybody that has put questions late on and we haven't got to them. And there's some really nice comments. I'm whizzing through here. We are over on the other channel at 8 o'clock. We do get in trouble for promoting it, I'm afraid, but that's the way it is. If you want to support us, the best way is to come at 7 o'clock and just keep the numbers going up, like, comment, subscribe, and all that sort of stuff. Genuinely does help the channel. The more you do it, the more you share, the more you comment, the more you subscribe. Both Richard and I would really appreciate it. Sorry to do this sort of sales job on you, but times are hard. And it's more difficult to get through on the algorithm with YouTube because they don't want us to. Simple as that. So I want to thank you all for supporting us. Like I say, I have put a link in the comments for the next show. So hopefully you can do that. I will do it again so it's nice and fresh. That's over on Rumble, and we'll be over there in a minute. So thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Yes, thank you, guys.
We're going to end there then. I'll see you over there.
Yep. Cheers, man.